Hello and welcome to Extension Evolves, a show brought to you by the St. Lucie County University of Florida Extension. My name is Ed Scavarch. I'm the commercial horticulture agent in St. Lucie County and also the St. Lucie County director. Today we have two of my colleagues here, Sue Munyon. Sue,
Hi, Ed.
welcome. Debbie McManus, welcome both of you. And today what we would like to talk about is the work that you're doing in stormwater runoff in the county. So you're involved with a program over at Indian Hills, right, with the stormwater retention area there, but that's not really where your stormwater program began, is it?
That's true. That's true. Just to give a brief introduction, my name is Sue Munyon, and I am in charge of the 4-H program for St. Lucie County, which includes 4-H clubs, training of 4-H volunteers, and also school enrichment and summer camp programs. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Been doing that for a very long time. And then, of course, we have Debbie McManus, who is in charge of school enrichment, and that's where our history with environmental programs and the Indian River Lagoon concerns come in.
That's where it really started, because I remember a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago, where you all wrote a grant and then you were able to take the stormwater education programming into the schools. You had boat rides available for the kids out on the lagoon. So why don't we talk a little bit about that first, to kind of set the background.
Sure. Thanks, Ed, for having us here today.
My pleasure.
Well, so I am the 4-H program specialist, and while Sue is in the office and dealing with clubs and the like nature of that, and she helps me with our programs, our school enrichment programs, I actually go into the schools and introduce our students 3rd through 7th grade to the Indian River Lagoon, many of which we have found don't even know that they live in a community where the Indian River Lagoon is. So we start pretty basic about where it is and what's there, and each grade level gets more information regarding the Indian River Lagoon.
So you use the classroom as a backdrop and background and foundation for your program, and then you're fortunate enough to be able to take those school children out on the lagoon itself on a pontoon boat and talk more about the lagoon. So why don't we talk a little bit about that and what you're doing with that?
Well, these programs, once they get to leave the classroom situation, they get to go out in the field, which reinforces what they just learned in the classroom. They make that connection by actually seeing it up close and personal. So yes, we do take boat tours of the Indian River Lagoon, which brings the experience home to them, because once they realize, oh my gosh, this is so close, and they know that there's over 4,300 different species that make up living in the most diverse estuary in North America, then they seem to want to connect with it. So that's our not objective, but that's where we want to go with this, is we want them to connect with something that lives in the lagoon, because then they'll want to be better stewards of the lagoon as they get older. So the boat tour is just one. We actually go seining. We work with Jim Oppenborn of the county, and we bag oyster shell. We go to Harbor Point, and then we also deploy those oyster bags, those modules, into the Indian River Lagoon to help recreate another oyster reef.
Well, Sue, we recently were able to create a partnership with the City of Fort Pierce and Jack Andrews and that group to be able to help us out so that we can provide educational programming to a very specific area in Fort Pierce, and that's the Indian Hills Stormwater Runoff project.
That's correct.
So why don't we start there and talk a little bit about that, and then...
Well, just like Debbie was talking, we want to bring an Indian River Lagoon experience to children so that they take ownership in the lagoon, and that makes it important for them to be conservative about what we put into the lagoon. So that's our objective. So the city of Fort Pierce has a wonderful area. It's called the Indian Hills Recreation Area, and we are using that location to expand our Indian River Lagoon programs. So this is just building on things that we are already doing, and we are just expanding it. And Debbie has more information on details of that because we're using youth in a really unique way there.
Where's that located? I mean, it's in Fort Pierce, obviously,
It
but
is.
how can you get there?
It is in Fort Pierce. It is behind the Heathcote Botanical Gardens, and it is right next to the old Fort Pierce Humane Society. Not the new location of the Humane Society, but the old site.
So that's off Savannah Road?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So I was there I think over the vacation, Christmas vacation, and it was a beautiful area. And then there was also some walking area off to what would be the south side of the Savannas. That is absolutely beautiful. So we've partnered with the city of Fort Pierce, and they have got this project going. And Debbie, you and Sue and another colleague of yours, Carly Barker, are going to provide educational programming at that area. That's really exciting.
It's very exciting. It's something new and fresh, and it actually lets the student visit there. I'm going to plan on actually offering field trips to the Indian Hills Recreation Area the school year 2017-2018, and they'll be able to. We're already talking about watershed programs, watershed in our community in the school system. I already have that program in place. So this way they'll get to go to a stormwater runoff area, which would be Indian Hills Recreation Area, and see physically what we've been talking about in their class.
All right, so I live in Fort Pierce. Am I a part of that watershed that's going to impact the stormwater runoff project?
Yes, and that's what I try to explain to students, that it doesn't matter where you go to school, where you live, where you shop, where you play, that wherever it rains, wherever there is excess water, which is stormwater runoff, all water runs to the Indian River Lagoon. So anything that's not absorbed into the ground will automatically, our county has designed it with drainage ditches and storm drains in parking lots and in their neighborhood, that all water runs to the Indian River Lagoon. So within this area, Indian Hills, it's a stormwater retention area. So once the water runs east, comes off of US 1 and back down Virginia Avenue and the Oleander Boulevard area, it runs east towards the Indian River Lagoon. It first runs into this retention area.
And the displays that you're going to have there aren't the only educational approaches that you're taking at Indian Hills. You're also going to be having the children, when they come down there, test water quality in a program called Citizen Scientist.
Yes, as a matter of fact, we are opening this up, and I believe we've already started with a youth citizen scientist group that will go bi-monthly to different areas at the Indian Hills and test water quality. And we have different ways of testing that. That information, that data that will be collected, can be shared with the city and the county and used for future research. Like, they can gauge what's going on at Indian Hills and see if they want to change anything or if it's working. The reason it's there, the reason they put it in, was to slow down the stormwater from going directly to the Indian River Lagoon. So with water quality testing, hopefully we'll be able to measure that and log it in and find out if that's actually working.
So we're also working with some of our specialists at our research station on Rock Road, and also our regionalized specialized agent. So could you talk to me a little bit about that, how that collaboration is going on?
Absolutely. Like Debbie was saying, we're getting youth involved. We're getting the community involved in this Indian Hills Recreation Area. It is for the benefit of the community, so we're trying to get everybody involved as much as we possibly can. So we are using the resources at the University of Florida Research Center. Dr. Alan Wright is helping us with water sampling techniques, and Lisa Krimsky, who is a University of Florida regional specialist in the area of water quality, is helping us also. So our students that we're going to be getting to do water quality testing are going to be trained how to use equipment, and we will probably evolve this into opening it up for adults as well. So this is going to be a community effort in order to use this facility to its true potential. The retention purpose of this facility is very obvious. When you go to look at it, it's very obvious. But there's a lot of fun things to do at the recreation area as well.
Yeah.
We've got walking areas. It's a mile long, approximately a mile long walking area. You can bike, you can bring your dog. There's exercise modules as you go along the retention area. There's going to be displays that tell you exactly what's happening there at the retention area, that how is the water being cleaned, what is being used. So it's going to be just kind of an overall really great experience, educational wise and also for recreation.
Yeah, so you can go out there, you can take your pet with you, your dog with you, and you can walk around this beautiful retention area. You can do the exercises. They have balance beams. I tried that. I fell off a couple times. And a couple other things that, apparently I need to get in a little bit better shape, and that's so. But you could also look at, I saw these mats in the water while I was there, and I wasn't really quite sure what they were. So Debbie, can you explain a little bit about those?
Sure. What makes Indian Hills Recreation Area so unique is that they've put into place 6 best management practices, or BMPs is what they're known as. And within these 6 BMPs, best management practices, they've added what's called floating mats. And these are plant mats that absorb extra nutrients out of the water. So by taking those out of the water annually, we can remove heavy nutrient sources that is being run through in our stormwater. So that's one. They've also introduced an alum injection into the stormwater runoff. And alum, to put it simply, acts like a drawing agent that anything that's floating in the water column, bacteria, E. coli, anything heavy, that sort of thing, can be drawn, can be gathered by this alum and drawn to the bottom of the retention area, so it's not floating across the top of the water. Once the water has been cleaned across the top, as best as can be expected, it then can flow across a weir station that was moved over to the southeast end of the retention pond area. And then that weir station allows water to flow over it, where then it goes under Indian River Drive and out into the Indian River Lagoon.
So the weir station kind of blocks or stops the flow of water as it goes into the retention pond? Is that pretty much?
No, it's on the other side as it's going out.
Oh, I see. Okay. And so is that adjustable, or is it just set at one
It's set at one level, but of course, depending on the height of the water, if we have a large rainfall, the height of the water would determine how much water runs over it also.
No small engineering feat. What other best management practices are there at the retention area? And can we discuss a little bit about maybe some of the best management practices that homeowners could take to help prevent this polluted stormwater runoff from entering into the lagoon?
Of course.
One of the really interesting things when you come into Indian Hills Recreation Center, you see a variety of plants. So we have the mats that are absorbing the nutrients in the middle of the retention area, and that's very obvious. And that's kind of a focus And when you're there, you notice that right off. But we also have a littoral zone, which has specific plants that are also nutrient absorbing plants as well. So that is also one of the best management practices that they have there, is the littoral zone. And it's very beautiful the way they have it landscaped. It's very visually very nice, and there's a lot of wildlife. So if people go out there and you're walking the area, you're likely to see a lot of bird life. There's definitely alligators out there. So it's very nice, very pleasant to be out there.
So that littoral zone, let me get this right, that's kind of where the plants are at just the edge of the water and where it meets the land. Is that what's considered the littoral zone?
Yes, right up to the shoreline.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The plants that have been planted there along the shoreline help with any water runoff that's coming from land before it goes into the water. One of the other ones is they created bioswales, because if you're familiar with that area, let's look at this. I almost forgotten that this was behind us. So if you look at this overview here, there is a large community just to the west of the recreation area, Indian Hills, a very large subdivision, housing subdivision. So of course, anything that goes on in that neighborhood, whether it be trash or litter or oil spill or gasoline, anything that's in that community, when it rains, is going to wash immediately to the east towards Indian Hills. So a bioswale will help slow down any pollutants before it actually gets to Indian Hills.
So there's the bioswale, right? There's the plant mats. There's the alum system. Did I pronounce that?
Alum.
System. All of these are utilized so that we can cleanse water at this retention area before it is released off to the lagoon.
Exactly.
Okay. So next, I'd kind of like to talk about some of the principles that homeowners can take to prevent this stormwater runoff. Washing your car, or fertilizing your lawn, or some of those other best management practices that can be practiced before that water gets to the retention area.
Exactly. And because people have just never heard of it before, they don't realize how simple it is in helping to protect pollutants from going into the Indian River Lagoon. Simple things like you said. When someone mows their yard, how many times have you driven down the street and seen grass clippings in the street? Grass clippings are full of nutrients, and once they get into our storm drains, they go straight to the Indian River Lagoon. So that's not what the lagoon needs, is more nutrients, especially from grass from our yard. But if we were to teach ourselves and be reminded ourselves, or ask our lawn maintenance company, please mow the grass back onto our yard. Your grass needs those nutrients from the grass that's being mowed. So it's very simple. Or
at least take the time and effort to blow those clippings that might be on the driveway and on the road back up onto the lawn.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because in my neighborhood, again, we have a drainage system where we have the drains that water will flow down into them, and that water goes directly to a canal that runs down eventually to the retention area.
Yes.
So
in your neighborhood.
In my neighborhood.
Yes.
And so that water really doesn't get filtered all that much because it's kind of a direct shot.
It is.
And you could have leaves or grass clippings or oil or whatever, brake fluid from washing your car on the driveway. So all of those are kind of like pre-best management practices, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, we talk a lot about fertilizer, and as you know, St. Lucie County now has an ordinance against certain fertilizer.
Yes.
And so when I'm talking to students, I explain to them that fertilizer in itself is not necessarily a bad thing. It's when you use it and how much you use. So if you put down fertilizer this morning and then it rains an hour later, your fertilizer is virtually washing off of your yard right into a storm drain or a drainage ditch. We certainly don't need more fertilizer in the Indian River Lagoon.
Absolutely not. So, exciting project. We're going to be partnering with not only the city of Fort Pierce, but there's some other partners that are involved with this project as well.
Yes, St. Lucie County,
Right.
and the city of Fort Pierce, the Department of Environmental Protection, 4-H, and UF, the University of Florida IFAS Extension. Yes.
Great. And so you're ready to go. I've noticed you've got this beautiful poster and you're starting to produce brochures. You're going to be out at community events. Any community events that you're going to be out in the next
Yes.
month or so?
We'll be setting up an informational booth at the Highwaymen's Heritage Festival
Oh,
on
nice.
February 18th. We'll be out there from 10 to 4 p.m. So if you'd like more information, we're handing out brochures, and I will be on hand, as well as I hope that you'll be there, Ed.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
I believe that Jack from the engineering department
Jack
at
Andrews.
the city, Jack
Mhm, yeah.
Andrews,
Mhm.
is going to be there. So I'm sure that he can offer up a lot more information and detail than I can. So if they want more information about how they can, a community partner or a homeowner would be interested in helping us stop pollutants from getting to the Indian River Lagoon, then we'd be certainly most interested in talking to them.
Excellent.
There's also, I just want to add real quick, there's also going to be a grand opening for Indian Hills Recreation Center on February 23rd, and that's going to be sponsored by the city of Fort Pierce. So that's going to be very interesting as well. I believe on the city of Fort Pierce website, they have information regarding the time of that event as well.
It's going to be a ribbon cutting.
Ribbon cutting? Okay. So, really cool project. But there's other things going on with 4-H here in the next month. Sue, I believe that you have a county fair coming up.
Yes, as a matter of fact, it's a big event for our county. St. Lucie County Fair is starting February 24th, and it's running through March 5th. And of course, most everyone who's ever been at the fair recognizes the 4-H kids there with their project animals, but we also have a lot of other things going on. So we have kids that are growing vegetables, and they will be in the activity area, and they're going to be growing them in hydroponic containers. And we're having kind of a little contest with that to see who can grow the best vegetables in a pretty short amount of time. So they get to mix their own soil, they get to do their own concoction for watering. So we're kind of trying to spur some interest in future gardeners. And it's been met with a lot of interest. So I hope everybody will come check that out in the activity area. We are also having this year a marine ecology program, and that's going to be a contest. 4-H kids have to identify marine wildlife, marine plants, shells, anything related to marine. It's pretty in-depth, and it's preparing them for a state contest. So this is the first time we're going to do a local contest, so we're kind of excited about that event as well. In addition, we have our extension booth that's going to be focusing on water quality. Land to lagoon is going to be the theme of our extension booth. So there's going to be a lot of different displays there. We hope everybody comes by to check those out, because there's things just like we talked about here that homeowners can do to help our environment. We all know that the Indian River Lagoon is vital. It's a vital component to this area, and we need to do whatever we can to keep it healthy.
And that's that connection that we make from the land to the lagoon. And that's why these best management practices that everyone talks about in our office and teaches are so important, from agriculture to homeowners to shoreline to the lagoon.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, again, the fair is a very big event for 4-H. There's livestock shows, there's horse shows, there's the different barns that the animals are in. It's just a really great opportunity for the kids to display their hard work and for the community to come out and see what things are all about.
Well, yeah, you walk around the barns where the kids have their steers or their pigs or their rabbits, and they're just so proud of what they have done, and you don't realize the amount of work and responsibility, and that's what 4-H teaches.
Absolutely. And for a lot of these kids that are there, this project is an ongoing event. They don't just get the animals a month before. It is a 10-month or longer commitment. So it is really, it's a family activity as well, but it's just a really great opportunity for kids to showcase some of their interests as well. We also have, I forgot to mention, a 4-H booth in Building A, and that displays other types of projects that 4-H is, that 4-Hers can do. There's arts and crafts, there's Legos. We have a group that just does Lego engineering, and there's poster art, and just really interesting types of things for people to look at.
Beautiful photography.
Yes, photography and
Yes.
artwork as well. Yes.
So lots of exciting things that you're doing. And one of the exciting programs that you have is your farm tours. And so in the last couple minutes of the show, why don't you two talk to us a little bit about that, what goes on down there, who you invite down there for tours, and
Okay.
Yeah.
Our 4-H farm is located west of our extension office on Pecos Road, and we have examples of farm animals. What we like to do is have students from grades pre-K through 3rd grade and also middle school students come out to the 4-H farm, and we actually show examples of farm animals, and we have different gardening techniques. We have square foot gardens, we have hydroponic gardens, and our whole goal with this facility is to teach children where their food comes from, because you would be totally surprised to know that children often, when we say, where do your eggs come from, they say Publix or Winn-Dixie or Walmart. They don't really connect the dots with food comes from a source such as animals or plants. So that's our whole goal right there. We also work with vet prep students that they get to learn about different types of animals. They get to learn about nutrition. They get hands-on experience handling the animals as well, which is an opportunity that they would not normally have available to them.
Well, I've had the opportunity of being out there and watching your group in action, and it's always comical, you're right, to listen to some of the answers and some of the questions. So we know that eggs do indeed not come from Publix.
Right.
That potatoes actually are dug up through the ground and not sold through just exclusively through McDonald's and places like that.
Exactly.
Well, we're closing the show, and we only have a few more moments, but I want to thank both you, Sue, and Debbie for joining us today. Very informative, and the work that you're doing through 4-H impacts our entire county, and for that we always thank you. So, and everyone out there, thank you for joining us today for Extension Evolves.